Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Alicia, the Baroness of Beef, and today for Conquering with Carnivore, I am joined by the amazing Keith, who has quite the carnivore success story. Now, Keith and I met in the Steak and Butter Gang, and our journeys really resonated with one another, and we've been chatting over email for a couple of months. Keith has lost over 160 pounds, which is around 80 kilos, as long as it's as experiencing a myriad of other health benefits, which I'm so excited for him to share. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand it over to Keith. Keith, thank you so much for being here. And if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to carnivore in the first place.
Oh yeah, hi Alicia, and thanks for interviewing me. And I'm 52, and I live in New Zealand, and it's a beautiful country, and I've had a bit of a life with being overweight and having addiction issues with carbs, sugars, alcohol. So for me to give you a better picture of how it used to be for me, I'd have to go back to around 2021 for our New Year's and Christmas celebrations with my family. At those times, there was always an abundance of everything. So there was abundance of food, there was an abundance of desserts, there was an abundance of alcohol. And I considered myself a binge eater and a binge drinker. So when I was drinking, I pretty much did the same as when I was eating, out of control. It was just the way that I celebrated things at the time. I got through that 2 weeks of being out of control, I would call it. And I knew there were consequences that I would have to pay for after that. But at the time, it was about celebrating, and being with family. So for January and February, what I haven't mentioned is my mental health issues. And I had PTSD. I had bipolar, depression and anxiety. And I also had a lot of sleeping disorders where I couldn't sleep properly.
Mm.
And so through January and February, I went into a deep depression due to my partying and going overboard with many things. I didn't even know what time of the day it was sometimes. I didn't even know what day it was through those 2 months. I would eat at really strange times during the day and early in the morning. And that just set me on a downward spiral.
Mm.
It got to about March of 2022, and I had a friend that I'd actually talked to on the phone, and she had happened to mention, that had I heard about keto, and I'd heard about it, but I'd also fallen off that wagon before too. So she sent me a link to a YouTube channel, Dr. Eric Berg,
Yes.
and he had hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on keto at the time. And I watched them. I watched them, and I started understanding that maybe I should give it another shot, give keto another try. And so I set myself up, and I got in keto foods like almond flour, stevia, erythritol sugars, xylitol. And I started looking at how to make keto foods, keto desserts, all of that. Because I
Mm.
could have my food. I still could have my food, like it was through keto. But what I did was when I had my plate, I had about 50% vegetables, about 25% carbs and then about 25% protein. And so I set myself up and I started keto itself in May of 2022. And then I went along. I just kept on watching Dr. Eric Bergs and I just kept listening and learning. And I was doing great. Because I had changed my way of eating, my inflammation came off. Um, I was feeling my weight came off, inches came off. I was feeling a lot better, but I was still having those carbs and sugars, although in a different form. I was still having those as part of my diet. And about 3 or 4 months into keto, because I did 10 months keto in total, and about 3 or 4 months into keto, I didn't understand what it was, but at the time it was massive joint pain in my legs and in my feet and in my ankles. And also, like in my knuckles and all that sort of thing. And I didn't know where it came from. So I went back to YouTube University again, and and I found a lady called Sally K. Norton,
Mm.
who's who spoke on oxalates
Yeah.
and her videos talked about oxalate dumping and all those symptoms. I that's what I felt with this pain. Now this pain was so bad that because I used to also have gout.
Mm.
Gout was something that was common to me. So that's what I originally thought it was. But I ended up calling my doctors, as I would always do, and I would get medications for it, like anti-inflammatories, allopurinol and cotricillin. And I started taking those to relieve my pain. But the problem with that was I was starting to rely on them
Mm.
and rely on the medications. And so when I found Sally K. Norton, I ended up going to one of her Zoom course group session, and it was very affordable at the time, and I got to speak to her on it. And yeah, she pretty much said, yeah, because I was eating spinach, uh, silver beet, or what you call Swiss chard a lot, smoothies,
Mm.
frozen berries, all of that. And even though I was losing weight and losing inches, this massive pain was just, I couldn't even sleep at night some days. Sometimes I couldn't even, I could only go from my bed to my bathroom and back again. And I had to stay in bed. And
Wow.
I actually had crutches. I had crutches, yeah, that I had to get myself around on. Uh, that's how painful things were for me at the time.
Mm.
And so I ended up just thinking it was normal. You just carry on with life and be as mobile as possible. I used to ask friends and family and that to go shopping and that for me when I was at my worst times, when the
Mm.
medications and that weren't working. But and I felt useless at the time, but at the same time, I felt good that I was making progress,
Mm.
even though all this pain was happening to me. And once I figured out it was oxalate dumping, I worked on that, although I still used medications as part of that remedy. So here I was going through, and then Christmas and New Year's came along again, and I was still keto, and I thought, wow, I was looking a lot better, a lot healthier, had lost a bit of weight. And my family was noticing all of this and they were going, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And it got to Christmas and New Year's again of 2022. And I did it again. I just thought to myself, you've done so well since May. You know, you should give yourself a bit of a break. And the old ways crept in again. And so when the food came along, I gave myself a break and I ate everything, including the desserts. And these were homemade desserts. These were lovely, and my family's lovely cooks, the food. And and then of course the alcohol came along again. And I hadn't drunken since about April of that year. And so I started back on the binge eating and the binge drinking again in 2 weeks.
Mm.
And then the same thing happened. I had to pay for the consequences. The aftermath of it all set me on that downward spiral again in 2023. And I was starting to bring my old ways back in again. So I'd be looking at like, 6 days of keto is really good. uh, why not have a cheat day? Why not have a cheat day? And so I would. And it might be a Saturday or Sunday. Well, that cheat day turned into 2 cheat days and then turned into 3 cheat days. And then before I knew it, I was probably half keto and half back to my old ways. And I was starting to feel that sadness, that unhappiness of going backwards,
Mm.
starting to creep back in again and starting to take a grip of me again. With mental health, it's, to me, the foods that I was eating was all together. It all fitted together to me, but I couldn't help myself. I couldn't stop myself. The addiction or the addictive side of me for those foods uh, got stronger and stronger. At one point, I realized all of this. I was like, I'm going backwards, and the weight was coming on again. And as I'm going through and trying to get my mind back into keto again by listening to Dr. Eric Berg, Dr. Ken Berry pops up on my
As he
on my
does,
YouTube.
yes.
Yeah, pops up. And I looked at it and he was talking about beef, butter, bacon, and eggs as a way of eating and talking about carnivore. And this was in the beginning of March. I decided to watch one of his videos and I was looking at it and I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
There's no way that here I was doing the whole, let's say, rainbow of foods,
Mm.
and now you're telling me all I need is meat,
Mm.
some eggs, and butter. That's just doesn't sound right to me. But I carried on watching, because I was curious and I wanted to find out what he was saying. And then, of course, other influences from YouTube were starting to go into my recommended feeds. And like Laura Spath and Kelly Hogan, Dr. Kurtz, there was a few, Dr. Chafee. Dr.
Yeah.
Chafee was starting to fall into my YouTube recommendations. A lot of doctors, and I was thinking, wow, there's a lot of health professionals,
Yeah.
and they're saying this basically the same thing, that meat is good for you
Mm.
and that you should be eating more of it, not less. And so on the 29th of March, 2023, I decided I've got to give this a go. I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
I'd done keto really well, but I had kept the sugars and the carbs in, although in a different form. And I decided, what have I got to lose? I mean, like, seriously, what have I got to lose? I tried many other diets and shake diets and all sorts,
Oh, yeah.
and I thought this way of eating is just, I don't understand it. I don't get it. But but how will I know it unless I give it a try, you know?
Yeah.
And so I decided to go down and buy just beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And that's a really good thing, though, because it cut down on a lot of the food. The excess food or the other, I call it the highly processed food,
Mm.
I didn't buy any of it. I just all I brought was the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And I bought a lot of it because I thought I'm going to eat this. And of course, I did. I couldn't. When you're eating carnivore, you're you feel satiated
Mm.
after the first meal, and I was like, wow, and I felt really good. I still remember my first meal to this day of
Yeah.
carnivore, and all it was beef burgers,
Mm.
um, eggs, bacon, and that's what I had for my breakfast. I decided to have some for my breakfast, and the butter, and I ate cold cubes of butter. I'd
Mm.
actually cube them up, and I remember cutting up the beef burger and then dipping it into the egg, into the soft fried egg that was fried in butter along with the bacon,
Mm.
and and then along with the cold butter. I don't know what it was, but when I put all those in, there was just the sensation that went through my body of excitement. It was like, it was just like a hallelujah moment. It was, my body was like, you know, thankfully, finally,
Mm.
you're giving me something that I actually do want, you know,
Yeah.
and it's only those foods. And so I thought I'll do a week of this. I'll do 7 days. Yeah.
Oh, me and you, the same.
Yeah.
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 I'll do 7 days of this. And after the seventh day, and I go on, buy me some more groceries and whatever, food. If I feel like buying me, whatever I wanted to buy at the time, I was going to buy it.
Mm.
And then when I got to the seventh day, when I got to the week ending of that, I found myself in the supermarket and then into the butchery store. That's where I went because
Mm.
my body was going, no, no, I want, and my mind, which was really interesting, was saying to me, no, no, just get the same things, beef,
Mm.
butter, bacon, and eggs. And I was like, okay, then. So I went in and brought them, and I came home and I thought, is this it? This is me, that's the food. And we have beef brisket here, which is
Mm.
quite fatty and quite cheap. And I used to slow roast it, you know, over a couple of hours on a low heat. And it used to come out so nice,
Mm.
the flavors. I used to pan sear it first, but the flavors in that and roasting it was so nice and so filling. And so that's all I would eat. And people always, if I mention to people that I'm a carnivore or that I just eat meat, they go, isn't that dear? Like, doesn't that cost a lot of money?
Mm.
But in my experience, because you're so satiated at the time, you don't tend to eat as much as maybe what I thought I was going to eat. So I had food left over from the previous week. So when I went in to go and buy it again, I didn't have to buy as much. And so I found that a relief, and it took a lot of cost away on my food costs. It's seriously. And so that's what I would tell people. I said, actually, I'm saving money, you
Mm.
know. And they were like, saving money? I said, I bought the cheapest stuff. I didn't go into the healthiest of meats, or because it's all I could afford at the time.
Yeah.
And that was the most important thing to do for me, was to stay carnivore, was to have my carnivore foods, and that I would buy the
Mm,
cheapest I could find. So I did all of that, and I was doing really well after the first week, and I got into the second week. And because I felt so good so quickly, it sort of blew me away. But
mm,
I had no one else to talk to about it. And anybody else around me, there was always a negative connotation to, you shouldn't, it's not going to be good, not going to be good for you at all.
mm,
Things are going to happen because that's what we were told. And I thought, but I feel so good. What, why would I want to stop or change it? So I just carried on, but I was alone in my journey. I there was no one doing it like I was. And look, I'm an independent person. I can do a lot of stuff on my own, and I think I do pretty well on my own, and by myself. But this carnivore thing, it, it I started to realize that I needed others to talk to.
mm,
I needed a community. So I started off online and being on live chats, with all the other YouTube influencers for Carnivore. And of course, one of the YouTube influencers that came along was Bella from the Steak and Butter Girl on YouTube. And I realized she had started a community, maybe even 2 years ago at that point. And she was talking about it. And I was like, that's what I need. I
mm,
need a community. So I signed up with SBG, or I call Steak and Butter Gang, or however you want to put it. I I created a profile in there of myself, and I asked questions in there, and I got a lot of answers from people, everyday people that were just going through the same things as I was. At the time, Bella wasn't there, and I believe she was looking after a family member, and so it was only the coaches were there. And then at that time also, they were doing lives, and I didn't know, and I happened to see it on the website. And so I decided, I wonder if I can get in there. So I clicked on it because I wasn't signed up. I had just joined,
mm,
and I clicked on it and got onto their Zoom calls.
mm.
And and I thought, wow, but I'm going to have my camera off. I'm going to have my mic muted, and I'm just going to sit and listen. So I sat and listened to the coaches, which were Coach Raymond and Coach Emily, and they were talking about something called priming. And I sat there in disbelief of what they were saying, because at the time my primary goal, well, first of all, I wanted to stay carnivore. Secondly, I knew I needed a community, but my most highest priority was to lose weight. And here they were talking about priming, in that you actually, to start off with, you should be eating 3 times a day. And I'm sitting there going, if I eat 3 times a day, until what they were calling comfortably stuffed, if
Yeah.
I do that, I am not going to lose weight. I'm not going to reach my goals. What what I didn't understand at the time was, because I had not given myself enough nutritious foods like carnivore, the good foods for me, and I had been eating carbs, sugars, and everything else, my body, what I believe anyways, needed to reset. And it needed those nutritious foods to refeed itself again. And that's how, and that's why my body was feeling so good and my mind was feeling so good, is because I was feeding it that way. And but then to do it 3 times a day, oh, so
Yeah. Plus
and
snacks for the first,
plus
what is it,
snacks,
week?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It seems
yeah.
like
So
what?
yeah, it was just crazy to me, anyways, at the time. And but I listened to them. I took in as much information as possible, and then and I was there for 2 months, just taking it all in, you know. And then I decided once again, what have I got to lose? you know, just give it a try and see what happens. And so by that time, Bella had come back, and the 30-day challenges were back on again. The Chisel program
Yeah.
was on again, and they were all subscriptions.
Yes.
So I had to make a decision on, would it benefit me to pay a subscription into the, into these meetings, and where, money wise, it, it was actually quite cheap, even
Mm.
even with the exchange rate. It was I would still consider it a good amount to pay,
Yeah, good
and
investment in you. Yeah.
yeah, good investment in me. And so the money that I was saving on Carnivore with my foods, because I wasn't buying all the other crap, it was I took that and stuck it into an investment, like you said, on myself, onto these awesome programs. I can't speak enough about them. And I ended up joining their Chisel program, and that's where you can get all the information in a written form, plus with videos,
Mm.
right? And plus they would do lives for live Zoom calls. So I got into that, and the good thing about that was I could prepare myself for the coming month. So I knew exactly where, what I was going to do, how much food I was around about needing, what the schedule looked like eating wise, because they would give you times. Now, these were only guides,
Mm.
right? You didn't have to follow them strictly, but I decided I'm going to, because I've got, I needed help. I needed support, you know, and I needed others around me to tell me how to do this. And I had a lot of questions for them, and I still had a lot of doubts.
Mm.
But every time I'd go back to them, once or twice a week, I was changing. The thoughts in my mind were changing. The information about how it all works, carnivore wise, and why it's so good for you, all the food that I was eating, started sinking into my brain. It was finally getting into it took a while, but it finally got in there, and I would come back so happy talking to them, because at the beginning of Carnivore, the same thing happened for me again, where I started getting joint issues again.
Right.
And what I believe it to be at the end was I was creating a safe space for my body, right? And because of that, my body was going, cool, we need to get, because when I was eating the old way, the fat was being stored on my body.
Mm.
And the fat is a protectant as far as I'm concerned. And it was taking any toxins that I had and storing it to keep it away from hurting me any more than it was.
Mm.
When I created this safe space, it thought, this is great. We can start releasing them now.
Yes.
And that's what happened. As far as I believe, anyways, it started releasing all this excess fat and toxins. And then my uric acid went up, and then my joint pains and all that came along. But I went through it. I just went through it again. I found different ways to combat it, I suppose. One of the things I did was I went back to black tea
Yeah.
because black tea has a certain amount of oxalates and it's not too much. So when the body receives those oxalates from the black tea, it doesn't dump as hard. It doesn't
Yeah.
drop it as hard.
It
It
simmies
slows
the
it down.
tide. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that worked for me, along with I was also having lime juice, freshly squeezed lime. I had a friend that had a lime tree. So I'd have that in a glass with some warm water, and I'd just drink that down. And that somehow seemed to slow it down. It didn't take it away, but it slowed it down, the dumping down. And over time, it's only gotten better. Like for me, I became very mobile. I started cycling again, and I started becoming social again, and being around friends that stuck around or hung around me to to be sociable a little bit more. And that was amazing for me because I'm very introverted. Um, I yeah,
Yeah.
and I like my space. I like my space to myself. It recharges me.
Mm.
So, but in learning all this information and going through all of that, I started making carnival connections. I started making carnival friends with this community that I was in SBG. And I think you might know a couple of them, but they are very good friends with me now. And they've stuck around with me for a while, and I appreciate that. So one of them is Todd Bockness, and he's from the Carnivore Cure on
Mm.
YouTube. The other one is Limitless Lindy,
Ah, yes.
and she lives in Australia.
Yeah.
And then there was Michael, which is
Yeah.
a one of their friends, and so they've got a YouTube channel called the 700 plus pounds and counting down. So each one of these people were over 700 pounds. And here they were on YouTube sharing their life stories, you know, and they inspired me. They completely inspired me. And I actually looked at myself and I used to think, what have I got to cry? What have you really seriously? What have you got to cry about? Yes, you were overweight. Absolutely, I had mental health issues. You know, I had PTSD, I had bipolar, I had depression, anxiety, and I had sleeping disorders. So, yeah, I
Mm.
had issues, absolutely. But I watched these people talk about it all, and they became my very quickly became my very close carnival friends. And then we get into 2023, Christmas and New Year's again. But this time, it was different.
Yeah.
My mind had changed. What I thought about myself had changed because I'm going to be honest, in my worst times, I absolutely hated myself.
Mm.
I loathed how I used to be. You know, the the voices in my head were strong. While I was eating sugars and carbs,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they were loud. When I got onto Carnival, they started quietening down,
Yeah.
and then they started becoming a whisper. And I was thinking, that's really interesting. But the voices that were getting stronger were my people from the carnivore community, the
Yeah.
carnivore influencers on YouTube. Those were getting stronger. And then my own experiences of how things were going, how well things were going for me. I couldn't deny it, even to
Yeah.
myself, you
Yeah.
know. And so I carried on. Christmas and New Year's came along, and I thought, here we go again. Okay. It's, but I got some help, right? I called on my friends,
Yeah.
and I had four very good friends, and I've mentioned three of them. And I asked them if they could just text me on Christmas Day and see how
Yeah.
I'm going. Text me on New Year's Eve night, because that's when the other time for drinking would happen and eating and
Of course.
celebration. Just text me and ask me how I'm going. And I'll send you my response on however it was. But at least I had someone to talk to, you know.
100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I ended up going through that, and miraculously, I spent time with my family, enjoyed my gathering with them, being with them, without alcohol, without sugars and carbs,
Yeah.
and just eating the meats that were available at the time. Now, over here, we decided as a family to have like an earth oven,
Mm.
like cooked it in the ground and cooked our meats and chickens and even the vegetables, because everybody was still eating vegetables. And we cooked that, and it's a slow cook for about 3 or 4 hours, and it comes out so nice, and that I ate that. I ate the meat. We had lamb, we had pork, we had chicken, we had beef, and to me it was I could actually taste my food.
Yeah.
I literally could taste my food for once, and I loved it. And then I sat there, and so one of the things I was told to try was using soda water without any sugars in it,
Yeah.
and just the carbonated and the water. And so I used it, and I felt like I was drinking, because it was almost like an old habit, but I was getting none of the side effects, you know, none of the hangover, none of the cravings for food, none of that was happening for me. But
Mm.
I still got to enjoy the getting together with my family, and I even surprised myself. My family was shocked because they knew my old ways.
Yeah.
But they were very proud of me, for what I was achieving at the time. First Christmas and New Year's in my adult life that I didn't have any sugars, carbs, or alcohol. And that was last year over the Christmas and the New Year's Eve period. And that really helped me a lot, just knowing that I had support out there, and people cared about what I was doing, So once I got once I got those texts, and we talked back and forth, and I let them know about how I was just drinking soda water or sparkling water, whatever you want to call it. And they were very proud of me, and I stayed carnivore, and that was a huge achievement
Mm.
on for me to do. Like I said before, my whole adult life, all I did was binge eat and binge drink on Christmas and New Year's. And so I got through that challenge with the help of my friends, my carnivore friends. And so a new challenge came along.
Mm.
That new challenge for me was it was going to be my 1 year carniversary on the 29th of March of this year, 2024. And so I'd gotten through all of this Christmas celebrations and the holidays, and I thought, if I can do that, I'm sure as heck going to I'm gonna make it to my 1 year, and that's going to be worth celebrating. So the time carried on. I carried on within SBG, and in January somewhere, Bella sent me an email and asked me if I would think about being a moderator with the SBG gang or the community. because they knew my story and I'd stuck around, and they could see the changes from day one right up to that point. And I hesitated because I wasn't ready. I didn't think I had the knowledge, although at that time I think I was around 10 months being carnivore, and I'd learnt a lot from the coaches and from Bella. I'd learnt a lot from them, but I still wasn't confident. I wasn't confident in myself. And then I started watching your videos, Alicia, and I listened. I think you were talking about mental health and what you were going through, and and discussing that. And that hit me. That really hit me. And I appreciated what you were saying because of all the similarities that you were going through. I I really connected, and I thought, I've got to reach out, and at the very least say hi, and give someone my story. And
Mm.
of course, she got back to me, and we carried on from there, talking via email. But at that same time, I was being asked to be a moderator, and I'm like a person that likes to sit in the background,
Mm.
and I didn't feel like I could do that. But eventually, Bella asked me again, and I started becoming more confident about my journey, my experiences, what I had learned, and it was time to share. It was time to be supportive in a community of people that had supported me through my hardest times, some of my hardest times. So I eventually said yes, and now I'm a moderator with SBG, and I've been on a couple of videos with Bella for her channel, and I'm still nervous. To this day, I'm still nervous and anxious and all of that. But my confidence is growing. My confidence in believing in myself and not thinking I'm less than anybody else. It's
Yes.
because of carnivore.
Yeah.
It's because of the food I'm eating. It's given me the strength to believe in myself again. So along along comes the 29th of March, 2024, and I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to celebrate this? How am I going to celebrate an achievement that went so fast, for starters? But I had experienced everything within the carnivore space, within the community. I had met great friends, and I was meeting even more people. And now I was a moderator, and then you asked me to, if I ever wanted to do an interview, that you'd like to have me, talk about my story. And so I thought about that. I seriously thought about it, and I thought, oh well, it's it's time for me to share my experiences. Now, as I said before, Lindy, Todd, and Michael had their own channel, and I had been on. They do live streams,
Mm.
and so I had been on there. I had actually plucked up the courage to finally jump onto one of their live streams because they had been so positive to me and encouraging. And oh my gosh, was I nervous and felt like a wreck. But I did it because the carnival confidence. They call it, is it the carnival zen?
Yeah. Zero
Carnival
cards in.
confidence,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah. The carnival confidence and the carnival calm that happens for you. So I went on there. I did quite a couple of shows with them at least. I would just jump on out of nowhere. And I thought, well, now you're out there.
Yep.
And why not say yes to to Alicia about having an interview. And then another thing came across my mind because everybody was sort of talking to me about you should really share your story in some way or another.
Mm.
And so when my year hit, my carniversary hit, I decided that it was time. It was time to jump onto the big YouTube space.
Ooh.
And yeah, and it was scary. It's very scary. It's still scary now.
Hmm.
But I decided to, I had a channel, but I had nothing on it. It was just to so that I could subscribe to other carnivore channels and get their notifications. And I ended up doing videos of my experience over the 1 year. And I've got a few videos on there at the moment. Not a lot, but a few. And there's a whole bunch of things. My thoughts on it all is I want to bring people along for my journey because even though I've been a carnivore for 1 year now, there's a lot of other things that I need to take care of uh, body wise. My mental health is so much more better, but it's always there.
Mm.
And I've accepted that and I accept that. But I have more control of that now.
Yeah.
I have an understanding of myself and what I can do. So, yep, I have a YouTube channel now and I'm looking at doing a couple of other things on it just to bring people along. But when you lose a lot of weight, there's the skin issues that come
Mm.
along with it. So I've got this great idea, which I don't know if it's good or not, um, to show myself
Yeah.
body wise and then to physically do activities, whether it could be using the bands
Mm.
to strengthen, like resistance bands, to strengthen my muscles. Because the funny thing is, I don't know about you, Alicia, but when you're so when I was so big, I couldn't feel anything,
Mm.
like because I was totally inflamed.
Yeah.
Now that I've lost a lot of weight, all the definitions within my shoulders, the tops of my shoulders, I can actually see the bone structure.
Yeah.
I can feel the bone structure. I can feel where my bones connect to my arms now.
Yeah.
And underneath, because I was so big, underneath all of that was a bunch of muscle. And I didn't know I had, but it had to
Yeah.
be there because it had to carry me all
Mm.
that time. It was
Yeah.
just covered up by inflammation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I realized that, and now, not to sound vain or anything, but um, there's definition in my arms. I can literally see my bicep now. You
That's
know,
that's not vain at all. That's a
no.
beautiful thing.
I have I still have hanging skin and all of that
Yeah.
around my tummy. I haven't spoken about the physical issues that I had. I had I was pre-diabetic with my health issues. I ended up I had really high blood pressure,
Mm.
like seriously high. The highest I got to was 135 over, I'm sorry, 165 over 135.
Mm.
And I was in a dangerous area. I also had a lot of constipation and diarrhea, which
Yeah.
is all part and parcel of it, and hemorrhoids. Hopefully that's not too much. information for
Oh, not on
people.
my channel. No, talk about
Yeah,
it all. Yeah.
yeah. So and I had a lot of bladder issues too.
Yeah,
So
I did too.
physically my body was literally breaking down.
Yeah.
And today I I don't have any of those. I it's it's amazing to me, you know.
Mm,
I feel so good about how my body's recovering from the damage that I did to it
mm,
for 45 to maybe 50 years. If I really think about it, because even as a child, I was eating a lot of not so good foods.
yeah.
So here I was. Now I've got all this to look forward to because my body's changed, my mind has changed, and I just want to share about what carnivore can be, what carnivore can do, and mentally and physically, I'm a better person health wise than I've probably been most my life, most my adult life at the very least. And now I want to be a part of the change. I want to be a part of these amazing people that are on YouTube and the communities that are being created around carnivore, around this way of eating. Because as far as I'm concerned, and in my experience, carnivore is healing. And that's pretty much my story.
And what a story it is. And this is exactly why I pestered you to get you on the channel. And I'm so glad that you finally said yes. I'm just absolutely thrilled and to give you a platform and time to be able to share this story. I know that it's really going to resonate and connect with a lot of other people. And the fact that you are now in a space where you feel comfortable and confident to put yourself out there. I'm so thrilled that you've started a channel, guys. I'm going to link it in the description below. Please go over and support Keith and keep an eye on his content that comes out. So, what a testament you are to the carnivore diet and the healing power that it does have. So I really wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, sharing your story. Keith, would you come back on the channel in the future?
I absolutely would, Alicia. I would try and support you as much as I can in anything that's got to do with your channel. Um, and I appreciate that you actually asked because when I was in the spaces that I was in, I just didn't consider myself. I knew the challenges that I'd gone through, but I just didn't consider that maybe it would help others. So if yeah, any time that you think that I might be able to help or share and support what we are both doing and what many others are doing, I'm more than happy to do that.
That's amazing, Keith. Thank you. And, there's been such a thread through the conversation, and that's been about connection and community, something that I feel intensely, strongly about as well. And I know that we're really aligned there. I think I've said it before, some people are lone wolves. You and I are very independent people, I'll do it myself. But sometimes you need to hear other people's stories. You need to be engaged with that. You need the knowledge, and knowledge is power. So I think, and especially because we're all spread out, over the world, um, having platforms like YouTube or support groups like SBG and social groups and things like that, it can be so important for a lot of people. So yeah, I'm so glad that you're reaping all the benefits, and that was a really pivotal decision for you to reach out to community. So I think that says a lot. So once again, Keith, thank you so much for being here today. I will pop all your details so people can go and find you. Do you have any other socials or anything like that that you wanted to shout out?
No, I just YouTube for now, and who knows in the future. But yeah, that my YouTube channel, go there and you'll find a little bit more about myself, and I'll share body changes that'll be my next step.
Amazing. Well, I really look forward to seeing the content that you bring out. And thank you so much again, Keith.
Thanks, Alicia.